Ladies and gentlemen, let me start by saying this life is too short to be surrounded by people who don't value you. The company you keep has the power to lift you higher or drag you down. Today, I want to shine a light on 4 behaviors that reveal when someone simply doesn't care about you. And when you recognize these signs, I urge you to act, because your peace is non-negotiable. When you find yourself in the trenches of life, struggling with challenges that test your strength and resolve, you quickly learn who truly stands in your corner. In those moments, the people who care about you reveal themselves not through grand gestures, but by simply showing up. They're present, they listen, they offer their shoulder, their time, their words of encouragement. But just as their presence shines, the absence of others becomes glaringly obvious. These are the ones who disappear when you need them the most. It's a hard pill to swallow, realizing that someone you thought you could count on vanishes when the road gets rough. They aren't there to share in your struggles, your pain, or even your moments of vulnerability. These are the times when their lack of support is most evident. It's not that you expect them to solve your problems or carry your burdens for you. You're not asking for the world. What you're asking for, what any of us want, is a sign that you matter enough to them that they would pause their world even for a moment to show up in yours. Instead, you're met with silence. Your calls go unanswered, your messages are ignored. Excuses pile up like autumn leaves, each one more insincere than the last. I've been busy, I didn't know you needed anything. I would have helped. But the reasons don't matter because at their core, they reflect a choice not to prioritize you when you were at your lowest. And if they can't stand beside you when you're struggling, do they truly deserve to celebrate with you when you succeed? What makes this behavior even more painful is its contrast. Think of the people who have shown up for you. Those who made time even when it was inconvenient. Those who dropped what they were doing to check in, to offer a kind word, to simply let you know you weren't alone. Their actions are a reminder that support doesn't always require grand gestures. Sometimes it's as simple as a text that says, "I'm here for you," a call that asks, "How can I help?" A quiet presence that speaks volumes without saying a word. When people disappear during your difficult times, it forces you to evaluate the relationships you hold dear. Are these connections built on mutual respect and care, or are they one-sided? Are you investing in people who would never think to invest in you? It's a tough question, but it's necessary. Life is too short to pour into relationships that leave you feeling empty. And yet we often make excuses for these people. We tell ourselves they're busy, they have their own problems, or they simply didn't know how to help. While these reasons might hold some truth, they don't negate the pattern of their absence. Because at the heart of support is effort, and when someone cares, they make an effort. It doesn't mean they have all the answers, but it does mean they show up. They reach out. They try. It's also worth noting that support isn't just about being physically present. Emotional support is just as important, if not more so. It's about feeling seen and heard, about knowing someone is in your corner, even if they're not physically beside you. When someone truly cares, they make sure you feel that care, whether it's through their words, actions, or consistent presence. So when someone repeatedly disappears when you need them the most, it's a clear signal. It's a reminder to reevaluate the relationship and perhaps to redirect your energy and attention to those who genuinely value you. It's not about holding grudges or harboring resentment. It's about protecting your peace, your energy, and your heart. Remember, the people who matter most are those who show up for you, not just in the good times, but especially in the hard ones. They are the ones who stay when others walk away, who lift you up when you're struggling to stand. These are the people worth cherishing, worth investing in, because at the end of the day, support is a reflection of care, and care is the foundation of every meaningful relationship. Boundaries are the invisible lines we draw to protect our time, space, and emotional well-being. They are an essential part of maintaining healthy relationships as they allow us to express our needs and foster mutual respect. When someone disrespects those boundaries, they send a clear message they have little regard for your time, your space, or your feelings. It's a behavior that can erode trust and damage the foundation of any relationship, leaving you feeling undervalued and disrespected. At its core, boundary disrespect comes from a lack of consideration. It's the friend who constantly shows up unannounced, disrupting your plans or invading your personal space without a second thought. It's the colleague who disregards your time, expecting you to take on tasks that aren't yours or interrupting you at the worst possible moments. It's the family member who oversteps with unsolicited advice or criticism, ignoring the emotional toll their words or actions take on you. In each instance, the underlying message is the same: what they want matters more than what you need. Time is one of the most precious resources we have, and when someone disrespects your time, it's a form of selfishness. They're late to meetings or cancel plans at the last minute without considering the effort you put into making time for them. They might monopolize your schedule with endless demands or expect you to accommodate their every whim without reciprocating the same flexibility. Over time, this behavior drains your energy and leaves you feeling as though your priorities and commitments are insignificant. Your space, both physical and emotional, is equally important. When someone disregards it, they intrude in ways that make you feel uncomfortable or violated. They might ignore your need for privacy, brushing off your attempts to set limits as unnecessary or unreasonable. This could mean barging into your room without knocking, prying into your personal life, or pressuring you to share things you're not ready to discuss. In extreme cases, they might dismiss your requests altogether, acting as though your boundaries are barriers to their entitlement. Disrespect for feelings is perhaps the most hurtful form of boundary violation. It often manifests as dismissive comments or actions that belittle your emotions. Maybe you express discomfort about a situation, and instead of acknowledging your feelings, they tell you you're overreacting. Or perhaps you open up about something deeply personal, only to have your vulnerability brushed aside or used against you later. These moments can make you feel unseen, unheard, and devalued. What makes boundary disrespect even more challenging is that it's often subtle. It doesn't always come in the form of overtly hurtful actions. Sometimes it's the little things, the interruptions when you're speaking, the disregard for your need to take a break, or the constant push to do something you've repeatedly said no to. Over time, these small acts of disregard can pile up, creating a pattern that erodes your self-esteem and strains the relationship. It's important to recognize that boundary disrespect isn't just about the other person, it's also about how you respond. When someone repeatedly crosses your boundaries, it's a signal to reevaluate the dynamic and assert yourself more clearly. Saying no is not selfish, it's a form of self-care. Setting limits is not unkind, it's an act of respect for yourself. While you can't control how others behave, you can control how you respond and what you tolerate. Respecting boundaries is a two-way street, and healthy relationships thrive on mutual understanding. When someone values you, they honor the lines you've drawn. They recognize that respecting your time, space, and feelings isn't a burden, it's a privilege. They understand that boundaries are not walls to keep them out, but bridges to deeper connection and trust. In contrast, those who consistently disregard your boundaries are showing you who they are. They're revealing a lack of empathy, a sense of entitlement, or an unwillingness to prioritize your well-being. It's up to you to decide what role, if any, they will play in your life moving forward. Remember, you teach people how to treat you by what you accept and what you reinforce. Protecting your boundaries is not an act of hostility, it's an act of self-respect. The people who truly care about you will honor them. Those who don't, they don't deserve the time, space, or energy you've been so generously giving. Manipulation is a subtle yet powerful tool used by individuals who prioritize their own gain above all else. It's a behavior rooted in selfishness and cunning, designed to extract what they need from you without any intention of giving back. When someone manipulates you, they exploit your kindness, vulnerabilities, or sense of duty to serve their agenda. Over time, this one-sided dynamic can leave you feeling drained, used, and questioning your worth. One of the most insidious aspects of manipulation is its subtlety. Manipulators rarely come out and openly state their intentions. Instead, they use charm, guilt, or persuasion to get what they want. They might frame their requests in a way that makes you feel obligated to comply, or they might play the victim, appealing to your empathy and desire to help. These tactics often leave you feeling as though you're making the choice, when in reality, they've orchestrated the situation to benefit themselves. For example, a manipulative friend might constantly ask for favors under the guise of needing help. They'll tell you how much they're struggling and how you're the only one they can rely on. But when you need support, they're nowhere to be found. They take without giving, leaving you to shoulder the emotional or physical burden while they move on to their next demand. In romantic relationships, manipulation can take an even more damaging form. A partner might use emotional tactics to control your behavior or decisions. They might accuse you of not loving them enough if you don't agree to their requests, or they could isolate you from friends and family under the pretense of wanting to spend more time together. Over time, these actions chip away at your autonomy and self-confidence, making you increasingly reliant on them while they continue to take advantage of your trust. Manipulators are skilled at identifying your weaknesses and exploiting them for their benefit. If you're someone who struggles with saying no, they'll push you until you give in, knowing that you'll eventually comply. If you're empathetic, they'll lean into your compassion, painting themselves as helpless or misunderstood to draw you closer. They know exactly which buttons to press to get the response they want, and they do so without hesitation or remorse. One of the most damaging aspects of manipulation is its ability to make you doubt yourself. After all, manipulators rarely admit their intentions outright. Instead, they may gaslight you, making you question your perception of their behavior. "I didn't mean it like that," they'll say, or "you're overreacting." These phrases are designed to shift the focus away from their actions and onto your reaction, making you feel as though you're the problem. Recognizing manipulation requires a keen sense of awareness and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. It's not always easy to accept that someone you care about might be using you for their gain. You might make excuses for their behavior, telling yourself that they're just going through a tough time or that they don't realize what they're doing. While there may be instances where this is true, consistent patterns of manipulation are rarely accidental. The first step in addressing manipulation is setting clear boundaries. When you recognize that someone is taking advantage of you, it's essential to assert your limits and communicate them directly. Manipulators thrive in environments where boundaries are weak or unclear, so reclaiming your power starts with defining what you will and won't tolerate. It's also crucial to resist the urge to justify or explain yourself. Manipulators are skilled at turning your explanations into opportunities for further persuasion. A firm, confident no is often more effective than a detailed rationale, which they might use to find loopholes or ways to guilt you into compliance. Finally, understand that walking away is always an option. If someone repeatedly manipulates you despite your efforts to set boundaries, it's a clear indication that they prioritize their own interests above the health of your relationship. Letting go of these toxic dynamics is not a loss, it's a gain for your well-being and peace of mind. At its core, manipulation is a betrayal of trust. It's a behavior that undermines the foundation of respect and mutual care that all healthy relationships are built upon. By recognizing it for what it is and taking steps to protect yourself, you reclaim your power and create space for relationships that are built on authenticity, respect, and reciprocity. You deserve nothing less. Consistent neglect in any relationship is one of the most painful forms of disregard. It's not a single act or an isolated oversight, it's a persistent pattern that makes you feel invisible, unimportant, and undervalued. It's the recurring sense that no matter how much you give or how often you show up, the other person doesn't see you as a priority. Over time, this feeling of being an afterthought can chip away at your self-esteem and leave you questioning your worth. Neglect doesn't always come with loud, obvious signs. It's often subtle, manifesting in behaviors that, on their own, might seem small or unintentional. But when these moments accumulate, they form a clear picture. Someone in your life consistently places other people, obligations, or even their own convenience above you. They might forget important dates like your birthday or anniversary, cancel plans at the last minute, or fail to follow through on their promises. While they might have plausible excuses each time, the pattern reveals a deeper truth. They don't value your time, your needs, or your relationship the way you deserve. One of the most hurtful aspects of neglect is how it contrasts with what you offer in return. You find yourself always available for them, rearranging your schedule to accommodate their needs, or putting in extra effort to show them you care. But when the tables turn, that same energy is nowhere to be found. You're left wondering why your efforts go unreciprocated, questioning whether the relationship is as meaningful to them as it is to you. Inconsistent communication is a hallmark of neglect. They might go days, weeks, or even months without checking in, only to reappear as if nothing has happened. These moments of absence can make you feel as though you're not worth their time or attention. Even when you do connect, the interactions might feel shallow or rushed, as though they're simply going through the motions. You're left longing for the kind of connection that feels genuine, present, and mutual. Neglect isn't just about actions, it's also about emotional presence. Someone who neglects you might physically be there, but emotionally unavailable. They might seem distracted, uninterested, or indifferent when you try to share your thoughts and feelings. You might open up about something important to you, only to be met with disinterest or a lack of follow-up. This lack of emotional engagement sends a clear message: your feelings and experiences aren't a priority to them. What makes neglect particularly damaging is its cumulative effect. The first few instances might feel like minor slights, things you can overlook or excuse. But over time, the repeated disregard adds up, leaving you feeling lonely even in their presence. It's not just the absence of effort, it's the absence of care, the sense that you're giving far more than you're receiving. Recognizing consistent neglect requires honest reflection. It's easy to justify someone's behavior, telling yourself they're busy or going through a tough time. While occasional lapses can happen in any relationship, consistent neglect is a pattern, not a coincidence. It's a behavior that reflects their priorities or lack thereof. Addressing neglect starts with communication. Sometimes people aren't aware of the impact their actions or lack of action have on you. Expressing how you feel calmly and directly can be a wake-up call. However, if you've communicated your feelings and nothing changes, it's time to consider whether the relationship is serving your well-being. You also need to reevaluate your own boundaries. Are you overextending yourself in a relationship that doesn't reciprocate your effort? Are you tolerating behavior that leaves you feeling unappreciated? Setting boundaries isn't about punishing the other person, it's about protecting your energy and self-respect. Walking away from neglect isn't easy, especially when it involves someone you care deeply about. But staying in a relationship where you consistently feel like an afterthought can be far more painful in the long run. Letting go creates space for relationships that value you, relationships where you are a priority, not an option. At the heart of every meaningful connection is the understanding that both parties matter equally. If someone consistently makes you feel like you're less important, they're showing you who they are. And when someone shows you who they are, believe them. You deserve to be seen, heard, and cherished, not occasionally, but consistently. Constant criticism is one of the most demoralizing behaviors you can encounter in a relationship. It's not constructive feedback aimed at helping you grow. It's a relentless pattern of tearing you down, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Over time, it can erode your confidence, shake your sense of self-worth, and leave you feeling inadequate no matter how hard you try to meet the expectations of the person criticizing you. Criticism becomes destructive when it is persistent and focused on fault-finding rather than problem-solving. Instead of addressing behaviors or situations, it becomes personal. The criticizer may attack your character, decisions, or abilities, leaving little room for improvement because their aim isn't to help, it's to demean. They might say things like, "You never do anything right," or "Why can't you be more like someone else?" These words cut deep, leaving scars that can take years to heal. What makes constant criticism particularly damaging is its ability to mask itself as concern or advice. The person might frame their comments as just being honest or telling it like it is, but their words lack empathy and balance. Instead of offering a solution or acknowledging your efforts, they highlight your shortcomings. This creates a dynamic where you feel like you're always falling short, no matter how much you strive to improve. This type of behavior often stems from the criticizer's own insecurities or need for control. By pointing out your flaws, they might be attempting to elevate themselves or maintain a sense of superiority. They may even be unaware of how deeply their words affect you, but that doesn't lessen the impact. Constant criticism creates an environment of negativity where you begin to doubt your abilities and second-guess your choices. One of the most damaging effects of constant criticism is the internalization of those negative messages. Over time, you might start to believe the harsh words being spoken to you. You question your intelligence, talents, or worth, adopting a mindset that focuses on your perceived flaws instead of your strengths. This internal struggle can limit your potential, keeping you from pursuing opportunities or expressing yourself fully out of fear of more criticism. Criticism also has a way of isolating you. The more someone tears you down, the less likely you are to seek their input or share your thoughts. You might find yourself walking on eggshells, trying to avoid the next critique. This fear of judgment can create emotional distance, eroding the trust and intimacy that form the foundation of healthy relationships. Constructive feedback, by contrast, is grounded in respect and support. It acknowledges your strengths while addressing areas for improvement in a way that encourages growth. Someone who truly cares about you will offer guidance in a manner that lifts you up, not drags you down. They'll recognize that their words carry weight and choose them carefully, understanding that encouragement is far more powerful than criticism. Addressing constant criticism starts with recognizing it for what it is. It's easy to dismiss or minimize someone's harsh words, especially if you've grown accustomed to them. But acknowledging the impact of those words is the first step toward reclaiming your confidence. Once you've recognized the pattern, it's important to set boundaries. Let the person know how their comments affect you and what you need from them moving forward. For example, you might say, "I appreciate your input, but the way you're saying it is hurtful. I need you to approach me with respect." If the criticism continues despite your efforts to communicate, it's worth evaluating the relationship. Constant criticism is not a sign of love or care. It's a reflection of the criticizer's own issues and inability to foster a positive connection. While every relationship has its challenges, you deserve to be surrounded by people who uplift and inspire you, not those who constantly tear you down. Remember, you are more than the sum of someone else's negative opinions. Your worth is not defined by their inability to see your value. Seek out relationships where mutual respect and encouragement are the foundation, and let go of those that only bring you pain. You deserve to be built up, not broken down. Choose to invest in people who see your potential and celebrate your growth, because that's what true support looks like. The absence of accountability in a relationship can be one of the most frustrating and damaging behaviors to encounter. It reveals a lack of integrity and maturity, creating an environment where trust, respect, and growth are stifled. When someone refuses to own up to their mistakes or actions, they undermine the foundation of any healthy connection, leaving you to bear the weight of their irresponsibility. Accountability is the cornerstone of character. It's about acknowledging when you've made a mistake, taking responsibility for its impact, and making an effort to do better. Without it, there's no room for improvement or resolution. People who avoid accountability, however, often choose deflection, denial, or blame as their default response. They refuse to face the consequences of their actions and instead shift the focus onto others, leaving you feeling unheard, invalidated, and often blamed for issues you didn't create. This behavior manifests in various ways. It could be as simple as someone making excuses for their behavior, always having a justification for why something isn't their fault. "I was too busy, I didn't mean it that way," or "you're overreacting," are common refrains. These phrases aren't about addressing the issue, they're about avoiding it entirely. By refusing to take ownership, they effectively dismiss your feelings and shift the responsibility away from themselves. In more toxic scenarios, the absence of accountability can turn into outright gaslighting. They might deny events that clearly occurred, twist facts to suit their narrative, or make you question your perception of reality. For example, if you confront them about something hurtful they said, they might respond with, "I never said that," or "You're imagining things." This kind of behavior not only avoids responsibility, but also erodes your confidence in your own judgment. The refusal to own up to mistakes also stifles growth, both individually and in relationships. Mistakes are inevitable, they're part of being human, but they also present opportunities to learn, to change, and to deepen connections by showing vulnerability and a willingness to do better. When someone refuses to acknowledge their missteps, they rob themselves of that opportunity and keep the relationship stuck in a cycle of unresolved issues. What's even more damaging is the burden this behavior places on you. When someone refuses to take accountability, the responsibility for fixing problems often falls on your shoulders. You might find yourself apologizing for things you didn't do, overcompensating to make up for their shortcomings, or constantly trying to mediate situations they've caused. This imbalance creates resentment over time as you're left doing the emotional labor they refuse to take on. Addressing the absence of accountability starts with recognizing the pattern. It's easy to excuse someone's behavior, especially if they're skilled at deflecting blame or minimizing their actions. But consistently overlooking their refusal to take responsibility only enables the behavior. Once you see it for what it is, the next step is to call it out. Communicating your feelings in a clear and calm manner can be a powerful first step. For example, you might say, "When you dismiss how your actions affect me, it makes me feel like my feelings don't matter. I need you to take responsibility so we can move forward." Framing your concerns around your feelings, rather than accusations, can help reduce defensiveness and encourage a more constructive conversation. That said, not everyone will respond positively to being held accountable. Some people are so entrenched in their refusal to face their own shortcomings that they'll double down on denial or blame. If this happens, it's important to protect your own emotional well-being. You cannot force someone to take responsibility if they're unwilling. What you can do is set boundaries to ensure you're not consistently bearing the brunt of their irresponsibility. Ultimately, accountability is about respect for others and respect for oneself. Someone who refuses to own their mistakes shows a lack of respect for the people their actions affect. And if they can't offer that respect, it's worth questioning whether the relationship is truly healthy or sustainable. Remember, relationships thrive when both parties are willing to admit when they're wrong, learn from those moments, and grow together. You deserve to be surrounded by people who value integrity and are committed to building trust, not those who avoid it at every turn. Accountability isn't just a responsibility, it's a form of love and care. Choose relationships that reflect that truth. In life, the people we surround ourselves with play a critical role in shaping our experiences, our mindset, and even our sense of self-worth. When someone exhibits behaviors that show they don't truly care about you, whether through a lack of support, a disregard for boundaries, manipulation, consistent neglect, constant criticism, or an absence of accountability, it's not just frustrating, it's damaging. These behaviors erode trust, stifle emotional well-being, and create an imbalance that leaves you giving more than you're receiving. Recognizing these patterns isn't just about protecting yourself, it's about affirming that you deserve relationships rooted in respect, care, and reciprocity. The signs of someone who doesn't value you aren't always obvious. They may disguise neglect as busyness, criticism as honesty, or manipulation as concern. They may even shift blame so skillfully that you begin to question your own feelings and experiences. But the truth is always in the pattern. One mistake, one oversight, or one tough moment doesn't define a relationship. It's the consistent behaviors, how someone shows up or doesn't, day after day, that reveal their priorities and their character. It's important to remember that you have the power to set the standard for how you're treated. You teach people how to treat you by what you accept, what you confront, and what you walk away from. Boundaries aren't just barriers, they're bridges to better connections with people who respect and value you. Saying no isn't selfish, it's a way of saying yes to your own well-being. And letting go of toxic relationships isn't giving up, it's creating space for healthier, more fulfilling connections. At the same time, self-awareness is key. While it's crucial to hold others accountable, we must also reflect on our own actions. Are there ways we've fallen short in our relationships? Have we been as supportive, respectful, and accountable as we expect others to be? Growth is a two-way street, and fostering meaningful connections requires us to show up fully, just as we hope others will for us. The people who care about you will demonstrate it not just in grand gestures, but in the small, consistent ways they prioritize your feelings, respect your boundaries, and celebrate your successes. They'll take responsibility for their actions, offer constructive feedback instead of tearing you down, and be there when you need them most. These are the people worth investing your energy in because they see you not as an afterthought, but as a priority. In the end, relationships should elevate you, not drain you. They should be sources of support, growth, and mutual respect. When someone consistently shows behaviors that suggest they don't care about you, believe them. Let their actions guide your choices, and don't be afraid to make the hard decisions to protect your peace and well-being. You deserve relationships that build you up, not break you down. Surround yourself with people who bring light into your life, not those who cast shadows. Because at the heart of it all, the way you allow yourself to be treated sets the tone for the life you'll lead. Choose wisely, live boldly, and never settle for less than the respect and care you deserve. So what do we do about this? It's simple. We stop chasing people who aren't running toward us. You don't need their approval. You don't need their attention. What you need is to surround yourself with people who show up, respect your boundaries, and pour into you as much as you pour into them. Because at the end of the day, the most valuable asset you have is you. Don't waste it on people who don't value it. Thank you.